Hi, I'm going to listen to Dana Durnford, Beautiful Girl by Dana, or The Nuclear Proctologist. And he has all kinds of good facts, and it's hard to refute anything he says. So he's saying this earthquake was 9.6 in Hokkaido because the Japanese Richter scale goes from 0 to 7. The rest of the world goes from 0 to 10. So it sounds like anything on the mainland is going to be graded 0 to 7, and anything in the ocean is 0 to 10. And a lot of these, I'm sure a lot of people will say, well, the hillside slid away because it rained a lot there. Or they'll say the hillsides are made of volcanic ash. And I'm sure there's some good arguments there, but it looks like a lot more than a 6.6 to me when you look at the damage.
This was an epic. Now I get into the headlines coming up very quick here. These are epic damages. This meant that if a nuclear power plant was running, you would have broke the pipes for the fresh water, salt water, and you need 1 million gallons a minute for each reactor. And so if you break the pipe, the reactors would have melted down. So this is proof you shouldn't have a nuclear power plant on the North Island, for sure. This is proof that they're very vulnerable. Look at all the mountains in the background. Every one of them are landslides all the way around. If you're on the other side of it, look the exact same. Every one of the mountains, everywhere, everything. This is like we don't have pictures like this. We've never seen this before. Like, this is insanity what you're looking at. This is a 9.7 earthquake on an island by itself, right alongside of another island that was also. Because these earthquakes would separate, if those reactors were running, they would have melted down for sure. Because you would have pulled apart the water pipes. They need 1 million gallons a minute. If you don't get it after about 50 minutes, they start to melt down. And as soon as the fuel pool drains a little bit, you can't get near the site. Up to 3 football fields is a lethal dose. So it shouldn't be on our planet. But the Earth moves so much here, if it was running, we would have melted down the nuclear power plants. And you can see everything is smashed and crashed and torn apart. Now, this is the general area. The power plants are on the other side of the island, which is not very far away because it's a small island, and there's a turtleneck there. I'll show you some good pictures of coming up to really drive. These are all pictures of the plant on the northern island. The quake occurred at a depth of about 40 kilometers in this version and logged on a 7 on the seismic intensity scale. And you forget to put the words international or Japan there, but they're talking about Japan. And at Suma, where you see that was all those mountains, and a lower 6 in the city of Chitos, southwest of Sapporo. They closed the airport. All the trains on the island shut down. All the trains on the island shut down because it was such a big earthquake.
So it just seems like bigger than the 6.6 that everyone states they are. And here's the 6.6 right here in Japan and all the aftershocks. And then there was a big 8 further south in the Pacific again, like 3 weeks ago. There was another 8. And a lot of that worked right over to Venezuela and over there, but it's probably coming up this way again also. The next part talks about a power plant that was not running when shut down, and I mistakenly said it was running, but still, all that, it's been shut down since 2011, and all that fuel still needs to be cooled. So it's sort of crazy. How can it be carbon neutral if you have to keep energy going to it for decades after? September 6th, 2018, there was a 6.6 earthquake in Japan in the northern island, and there also was a 8 earthquake south of Japan, in South Pacific, but that probably work its way back up this way. So this 6.6 earthquake shut down this nuclear power plant because it rattled enough where the emergency shutdown went into progress. But if there would have been an earthquake out in the ocean and that caused a tsunami, and that would have flooded this one also, and then you just have another Fukushima. But that's good, that didn't happen this time. Nuclear power station in Hokkaido is relying on emergency backup power after powerful earthquake knocked out energy in the northern island. Because they use outside energy as backup, because once the nuclear reaction is shut down, well, slowed down, then they go to the emergency generators on site, which they did also at Fukushima. Same thing, exact same thing, but there was no tsunami that came in and flooded everything. So this thing could have melted down and blown up too, just like the other 500 plants in the world, or the one on the California coast, wherever they are. They're just a bunch of nuclear terrorists killing everybody. But I guess they don't care, because when they die, they don't care about anybody else. So they're just good business people. Okay. So if you've been paying attention to earthquakes lately, you know they've been going up in frequency and intensity. And one of the reasons is these objects next to the sun that are sucking energy off the sun. Looks like a whole bunch is going out into space. Some stellar core next to the sun. As Dr. Sylvia Albers of Planet X Physicist explains. And that's why I recommend you go watch. Look at that. So that's just one of the objects that I've caught next to the sun. Now this is a 211 angstroms, and it shows the dark spots. Excuse me, the dark spots are where the corona is not present. You see the corona on the edges here. But the dark spots mean there's no corona there, and all that energy is flowing out past with nothing to block it. So it comes out at a greater speed and heavier amount of impact on the Earth. And so here's the solar winds. The sun's on the right, and you see the energy on the left of the planet. So that energy is coming from some other object, and it's sort of you can see it's sort of an egg. They're getting pressed on both sides, so that's going to help the frequency and strength of earthquakes to increase. Now, Dutch Sense talks about size of earthquakes, and he predicted this 6 up here in Japan at Hokkaido. So I want to believe it's a higher earthquake value than the 6.6 that we were told, but he knows a lot of stuff about this, so I'm not sure why he wouldn't understand the difference between Japanese scale and international scale.
Let's get into what happened today. If you're not aware, we saw a big increase across the West Pacific following our large, deep earthquake down below the West Pacific just a day ago. Now, this came in at 8.1. Then they downgraded it to 7.8. But regardless of the downgrade, we'll call it a deep 8. That's most likely what it was. Now, since then, right after the deep quake, within 12 hours, South America was fully displaced with a 6.2 down in Ecuador, 5.6 to 5.8 up in Panama, and a 5.8 down to the south in Chile. And all 3 locations struck on land. People took to the streets, some injuries, Damage reported in all 3 locations. That's where we started right after this deep quake.
So that energy flows east to like Venezuela and Argentina and stuff over there, where they have I don't know, 3 nuclear power plants in Argentina, I believe, and then it goes up north and west and just creates more earthquakes. And the old idea is if it is a deep earthquake, it gets stronger as it comes up. But we had an 8 3 weeks ago, and that didn't work out. So we're watching to see what happens with this one. It could be a 9 according to calculations, but we'll see.
The north, and we have another 5.0 striking back. I would call this more of an aftershock back at our large earthquake location in Japan. Now, in Japan, guys, there's been many fatalities and hundreds of people injured. We issued the warning for this. We talked about looking for a 6.5 on September 3rd. In my video, about 17 minutes in, we're talking about Japan, and we named the area here off the coast of Fukushima, which is right here. And now, of course, the earthquake struck just to the north. And we were looking for a 6.5 to 6.6 to strike here. And this is the spot we were talking about off the coast of Fukushima. Well, it struck just to the north, and that is an earthquake forecast hit. But within...
So he's really good at forecasting earthquakes and stuff, and really good to listen to if you want to know what's going on in the world. And so trying to gather all this information and figure out what's going on is a little difficult because, you know, people have different views, so you got to just sort of decide stuff. But I do know why we don't want these terrorists running these plants. So call your home security and the FBI and tell them all these terrorists are in the country, and then they call the CIA and tell them they're all around the world, and you got to help shut them down because they're killing all the planet. But so that's why we don't want these things, and we don't want all these radionuclei flying all over the place. This is from Energy News, February 2nd, 2018, Fukushima nuclear disaster, not accident, disaster. Lethal levels of radiation detected in leak. Experts warn of global consequences unless the plant is treated properly. TEPCO found 8 sieverts per hour in radiation, while 42 sieverts were detected outside its foundation. So if you were to walk up to either of those, you might make it before you drop dead. You can walk towards it. It came as TEPCO said the problem of contaminated water pooled around the plant's 3 reactors that is seeping into the ground has caused a major headache in its efforts to decommission the plant. It's causing a headache. Well, isn't that too bad? TEPCO hasn't a clue what is going on in its job to decommission the plant. Contaminated water that is leaking at the site could end up in the ocean. It could end up in the ocean. What about that? It could? Come on. It is in the ocean. It's been going in the ocean for 7 years. If the ongoing treatment project fails, so whatever their newest idea was here, you know, to whatever, it's ridiculous. Maybe the ice wall. Maybe he was talking about the ice wall, which was ridiculous. He told the Independent, I find it symptomatic of the past 7 years in that they don't know what they are doing. These energy companies haven't a clue what they're doing. I know what they're doing. They're making money. They're terrorists, and they're making money, and they're going to kill the earth. They are killing it. It's a disaster of unseen proportions. So anyway, that's just a little article that talks about Fukushima. And then here's one, excuse me, from November 21st, 2017. Russia finds 1,000 times normal level of radioactive isotopes after nuclear accident claims. Russia Meteorological Services said on Tuesday it had measures pollution of a radioactive isotope at nearly 1,000 times normal levels. Well, a radioactive isotope, that's a big, broad thing. You can just say that, blah, 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 and then they'll come up with ruthenium 106. So they told us one isotope. Big deal. My detector probably detects a couple of isotopes. But here's how many isotopes there are that are all, maybe there's one or two that were here before humans started working on this stuff, but these are all new elements. They're all new and they're all killing us. And they talk about iodine a lot. You know, they talk about the iodine 137, I think is one they talk about a lot. And that's something that they latch onto and talk about. But here's how many iodine isotopes there are. This whole line. That's how many there are. So when they talk about radioisotopes, that's how many iodines there are. It's not just 137, the one they tell you they're measuring. And they probably measure it because it has a shorter half-life, because they're just liars, deceptive, criminal terrorists. And here's how many radioisotopes there are. This is how many there are. And every one of them is bad for you. And then they, they give them names, radium, whatever they name them. But you get up near the top of the list, and they're so new, they haven't made up a name yet. But don't worry, it probably can't hurt you, because the energy will be too cheap to meter. That's what they used to say about nuclear, and they still do if you talk to them, probably.